The whole 100 men versus 1 gorilla hypothetical experiment concerning a battle between 100 unarmed male humans and a silverback gorilla has recently taken the internet by storm. While many have their own theories as to who will win, we wanted to base today's video on the closest past interaction involving X number of men and gorilla that we found on the internet, excluding any other bears and monkeys and solely focusing on the topic at hand, a gorilla. However, some of these interactions are not the perfect scenario with exactly 100 men per se, or if they were unarmed or not, but can still help contribute to the viral meme and hopefully draw a closer conclusion to the question. That being said, let's dive into the closest human encounters with a gorilla. I live in a small village in the country of Uganda. To be more specific, I'm from a tribe. Since we are a remote village, we don't have access to the things people have in the cities that make their lives easier. Something as basic as creating food to eat requires everyone to work together at every step of the process. We all have roles we train to fulfill from a young age, so that nothing goes to waste. Since I was a young boy, I've been training to be a hunter, and if it is ever needed, a warrior to protect my village. Unfortunately, I have never been the bravest man in my village. Whenever I was trained to fight, I was always afraid of getting hit. On all the hunting trips, I shadowed the older men of the village. I was always terrified of encountering animals in the forest, of which there are many. We mainly hunt for antelopes and warthogs, which on their own aren't able to attack us. However, there are also leopards, hippos, elephants, crocodiles, and even gorillas, which are capable of ending our lives in a more brutal way other than the smaller animals. Thankfully, in my lifetime, we have yet to lose anyone to the wrath of a wild animal. Recently, I was finally initiated by my elders as a true hunter. They tell me this is a great honor, but really, I have been dreading this day for my entire life. I will no longer have the safety of someone else with me. Just a few days ago, it was my turn to go hunting by myself for the very first time. My worries about failing to secure nourishment for my people were second only to the fear that I would become nourishment for something else. Despite all that, I had no choice but to leave my village for the day, out to where it is never safe for humans.
Holy crap, smells like there's a beast nearby. Please just be a little baby warthog. Just let me go, man. Just let me go. Please, 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 please.
After my near-death encounter with the silverback gorilla, I was too afraid to move from my hiding spot for at least an hour. Only when I was completely sure that the gorilla had run out of energy and returned to its group did I dare stand up and start walking back to the village. I knew that returning before dusk empty-handed, and having also lost my spear, would lead me to shame from everyone in the village. But I had no other choice. As I expected, the elders were furious with me. I was a failure, a disgrace. They tried to force me back into the woods barehanded as punishment, but I refused. In my cowardice, my right to eat was revoked until I successfully took out an animal, proving my worthlessness even more. My best friend stepped in for me and took my place as the hunter for the rest of the day. He only had a few hours left, but he promised to return with an animal. Unfortunately, the sun set lower and lower into the sky as we waited for him eagerly. After a few more hours, there was no sign of him. When night fell, we all became worried and scared for him. This was also one of his hunts alone, and though I had warned him not to, he had gone in the same direction I did, so I knew he would likely run into the gorillas. Everyone agreed to go searching for him in the morning when we could see. I retraced my steps, following where he had gone. I eventually came upon the same clearing where I encountered the gorillas, and what I saw there is something I will never forget. The gorillas were gone, but my friend's body was lying there in 3 separate pieces. The gorillas ripped off his arm and his head. I had never seen a human so brutally mutilated like that. I always see the shredded corpse of my friend when I close my eyes. I feel unending guilt that he suffered and passed away instead of me, but I just keep thinking about how I could have been the one who met that end. This story was inspired by a horrifying incident regarding a Reddit post that showcases an old article that discusses possibly the first and only authentic record of a gorilla taking out a human. The incident allegedly took place in 1910, and the victim was disclosed as a man named Uganda. Uganda had apparently gone into the forest to cut some bamboo when unknowingly surprised a family of gorillas. That's when the man was attacked by a large male gorilla. When Uganda's remains were discovered later on, it was found without the head and neck, which was nearby. This story goes to show how strong and lethal a single gorilla can be when considering the 100 man versus gorilla debate. This whole thing going around about who would win in a fight between a single gorilla and 100 humans has me thinking about something that happened several years ago. At the time, I was volunteering for an animal rights organization that I will not name, for reasons that will become clear. They sent me to the Democratic Republic of Congo to assist in what I thought was a campaign to preserve a shrinking population of gorillas. When I arrived in the country, I met a man who claimed to be the head organizer of the campaign. From the airport, he led me to a village where we met with a group of armed militants. The organizer, who by this point was the only person I could come close to calling a friend, said these men would be our escorts through the jungle should any hostile animals try to attack us. I was well aware of the potential for danger, though having half a dozen armed guards for just 2 conservationists felt like overkill. After briefly getting to know each other, the organizer finally offered to take me on my first trip to see a family of gorillas who resided in a known area relatively nearby. We were able to trek several miles deeper into the jungle from the village, but before long, we had to walk the rest of the way through dense trees and foliage. As we approached the gorillas' territory, finally, the journey came to an end as we reached a clearing. That's when we were quietly in the presence of gorillas. Through previous encounters with the organizer and his guards, the animals had become slightly accustomed to humans, but I was urged to step no farther than the edge of the clearing. In that moment, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The sight of the gorillas was so much more breathtaking and uncannily human. Even the silverback male in charge of the entire family seemed to care very little about us being there. But then, that majestic moment crashed and burned when the organizer and his armed guards retreated from the clearing by several yards, and their weapons were now trained on me. That's when they directed me to approach the gorillas, the exact opposite of what they had just told me moments ago. I obviously refused, but they started threatening me. I realized that I was walking to my death no matter which way I went. These men never intended to do anything but use me as live bait for whatever sick purposes they had.
No! Please don't make me do this. We're friends.
We can still be friends after this. Just walk toward the gorilla.
But he'll rip me apart. Why are you doing this?
Those rich creeps in the city will pay anything for an ounce of ape meat. And that thing right there is sitting on 300 pounds of it. All you gotta do is draw it out so we can get a clear shot. Got it?
No, this is insane. I can't do it. Just let me come back, please.
We're either leaving here with 300 pounds of ape meat or 100 pounds of human meat. Your flesh will sell for an even higher price. Understand? It's you or the gorilla. So what's it gonna be?
Okay.
closer! We need it to move!
I'm getting there!
I was looking at my worst nightmare, the face of a deadly gorilla inches away from mine. It was looking right at me as the life drained from its eyes. I'll never forget it. I was in shock after that moment, but the horror didn't end there. The men forced me to take photos for them, posing over the gorilla's remains. They were smiling at their accomplishment while I was nothing but ashamed to be a part of it. The poachers then wrapped the gorilla's body up to conceal it. Then the organizer told me that if I ever revealed the true nature of his operation to anyone, he would have me taken out and sold to cannibals on the black market. Given how much of my information he has, I have had no choice but to obey his order, but I have never gone back to the Congo since. The photos were leaked online. My face was never shown in the pictures. However, it has kept me from trying to be a part of any other wildlife conservation efforts, in case someone were to make the connection. Today, with this asinine discussion about humans fighting a gorilla, I can't stop thinking about what I witnessed, and about how reality is far less fair to gorillas than any hypothetical situation people might make them out to be. This story was inspired by a horrific incident regarding sickening images of a gorilla believed to have been taken out and being used for a photo opportunity by a group of armed men. Pictures posted online by the conservation group has sparked anger amongst animal rights activists. The organization, called El Association Gorilla, said the animal was taken out illegally, suggesting the men in the photo may be responsible. It was understood the photos were taken near Brazzaville, the capital of the Republic of Congo. In a social media post accompanying the stomach-churning images, the group said, "This is what we never want to see again. These shocking images of a beautiful gorilla taken out illegally. Let us remember once again that the slaughter of protected species is strictly forbidden by Congolese law. It has been mentioned that the apes were being taken out to primarily supply high-end demand for meat in urban centers, where the consumption of ape meat is considered to be prestigious amongst the wealthy. In regards to the 100 men versus 1 gorilla conversation, it's evident that men can of course win with firearms, but without it, well, that's up for you to debate." I used to work at a zoo that had a gorilla exhibit, but I ended up quitting. For years, I've tried to forget the reason for it, but since everyone on the internet seems to be arguing over 100 people fighting 1 gorilla, I figured I'd put in my 2 cents. Faced with this memory, I'm convinced that 100 men wouldn't even stand a chance against a gorilla. The gorilla could probably mow its way through 1,000 men. They're just too strong and too vicious. When I worked at the zoo, I was in the proximity of large and dangerous animals almost every day. I wasn't a handler though, just a cleaner, so I was always separated from the animals by glass or heavy locked doors. In the case of the gorillas specifically, they would be lured into one section of their enclosure and then locked inside while we came in and cleaned up the empty section. Just basic maintenance and scraping up mountains of gorilla shit. Everyone who worked at the zoo had varying degrees of emotional attachment to the captive animals. Some people were extremely passionate about them, but nobody else had quite the obsession as the person I worked closest with. I won't mention his name out of respect for his privacy, but he was my friend. This guy was absolutely crazy about gorillas. He would always talk about how much he wanted to interact with them face to face, without the glass dividing them. Sometimes, he'd even joke about how he could take a gorilla on if he had to, talking about how he just had to tire it out. At least, I thought he was joking, but deep down, I knew this guy had a psychopathic lack of fear when it came to the reality of just how strong a gorilla is. Even the ones bred in captivity would become hyper-violent without a moment's notice. I knew this. Everybody who worked there knew this, but my friend was in a deep state of denial. Or maybe it was just pure delusion. Him and I had multiple lengthy discussions about it while we were working together. Most of the time we just went in circles.
Man, all I'm saying is if Coco the gorilla can sit next to a human, sign words to them, and pet a damn kitten without hurting it, I bet I could shake its hand. Dude, are you insane? Are you trying to get your face mauled? A gorilla doesn't understand the concept of shaking hands or sign language, dumbass. Well, we'd have to train them, of course. People already do it with chimps. It'd be easier if I knew the gorilla from birth, but I'd just have to learn its boundaries while it learns mine. I can slowly teach it the ways of being a human while it teaches me how to be a gorilla. Maybe I can ease him in by feeding him a banana. Or maybe your banana. Dude, what has your dealer been selling you lately? You're talking a bunch of bullshit right now, and you're gonna get fired even if you survive the encounter, idiot. Shut up! I'm gonna prove that man and gorilla can coexist, because I'm not a chicken shit loser like you. I just need to work up a little bit more courage. And how are you gonna do that? Maybe I just need a little booger sugar first. Come on. Let's do it together, man. What do you say? Let's hit some rails, then hop that rail. Huh? Come on, it'll be fun.
I knew probably better than anyone how much of a danger that guy was. I never reported his problematic behavior to HR. I didn't want him to lose his job over what could have been nothing more than banter. After all, no matter how serious he sounded, I never truly believed him 100%. I mean, who would actually climb into a pit with a bunch of gorillas? Then, one day, I went to work not knowing if it would be my last day at the job. I was assigned to work just outside the gorilla enclosure along with my friend. At some point, I thought of something funny to say, but when I turned to talk to him, he was jumping down into the gorilla pit. I ran to the barrier and screamed at him to get out. Just seconds after his feet hit the ground, the largest gorilla in the zoo came out of nowhere. It charged at my friend and snatched him, then started slamming him against the ground like a rag doll. I screamed for help while the gorilla tore my friend apart, dragging him across the rocks and mounting his broken body. I tried to grab anything I could throw at the gorilla to distract it, but nothing worked. I couldn't do anything except wait for the security officers to shoot the gorilla with a tranquilizer dart. By the time all the hell was over and the gorilla passed out, my friend was completely motionless. I was sure that he was dead already, but miraculously, he survived. He had a severe traumatic brain injury and broken bones all over his body. I think anyone would understand why I quit that job on the spot after witnessing what I did. I still think about it to this day no matter how much I try not to. It only lasted seconds, maybe minutes, but the damage the gorilla did to a human body in that time was catastrophic. This story was inspired by a horrific incident regarding a gorilla at the Madrid Zoo, who attacked a keeper, leaving her with 2 broken arms and a head injury, the zoo announced on Sunday. The woman, 46, was performing daily tasks at around 10:15 a.m. local time on Sunday morning in an area of the animal's enclosure that is protected by a triple door system when she found herself face to face with Malabo, the zoo's 29-year-old male gorilla. The zoo team managed to keep the animal away, and later a veterinary team anesthetized it with a tranquilizer dart. The animal was brought to its interior enclosure where it was eventually calmed down. The reasons why the animal was able to access the area are being investigated internally. However, according to reports, the animal was startled just before eating his breakfast and then pounced on the keeper. The keeper was hospitalized in serious condition, emergency services said. The woman suffered a head injury, a chest trauma with multiple fractures, and open fractures in both of her arms. The zoo said Malabo has been raised by caretakers since birth and is usually quote-unquote close to caregivers. This just goes to show how dangerous a gorilla can be to a human, even if outnumbered by 100.